The crowd roared as Shaquille O'Neal stepped into his favorite Los Angeles restaurant. At 7 feet 1 inch tall, he couldn't exactly blend in, but tonight was different. The usual fanfare felt distant as his mind wandered elsewhere. 3 consecutive losses with the Lakers had the sports media questioning his commitment, his fitness, his very legacy. Shaq kept his head high, but the weight on his shoulders was becoming unbearable. "Mr. O'Neal, your usual table is ready," the host said, guiding him through the maze of turned heads and whispers. Shaq nodded silently, following the small man through the restaurant. His large frame seemed to shrink under the scrutiny of curious eyes. He had chosen this place specifically because they respected his privacy, tucking him away in a corner booth where he could disappear into the shadows, if only for a moment. "Rough game tonight, big man," his server said, placing a glass of water on the table. There was sympathy in his eyes, not judgment, and Shaq appreciated that. "Yeah," he replied, his deep voice barely above a whisper. "Sometimes the ball just doesn't bounce your way. If this story has already made you feel something, no matter how small, don't leave without giving back. Comment and tell me where you're watching this video from, and subscribe to the channel." The server nodded, understanding the understatement. It wasn't just the ball that wasn't bouncing Shaq's way, it was everything. The newspapers, the commentators, even some of his teammates seemed to be turning against him. At 32 years old, whispers about his decline were growing louder. His phone buzzed against the table, interrupting his thoughts. "Unknown number" flashed across the screen. Normally, Shaq would ignore it. Probably another reporter looking for a quote about tonight's loss, but something compelled him to answer. "Hello?" he said, his tone guarded. There was a pause, then a voice, weak but unmistakable, came through the speaker. "Is this the great Shaquille O'Neal?" The voice was slow, slightly slurred, but carried an undeniable charisma that transcended its frailty. Shaq sat up straighter, his heart suddenly racing. "Yes, this is Shaq. Shaq Attack," the voice continued, with a hint of playfulness. "This is Muhammad Ali, the greatest of all time." The restaurant around Shaq seemed to fade away. The chatter, the clinking of glasses, the soft music. All of it disappeared as his world narrowed to the voice on the phone. Muhammad Ali, the Louisville Lip, the people's champion. The man whose poster had hung above Shaq's childhood bed, whose autobiography sat dog-eared on his nightstand even now. "Mr. Ali?" Shaq's voice cracked, betraying his emotion. "Is this really you?" A soft chuckle came through the line. "Who else? Talks like me, moves like me, inspires like me. There's only one Muhammad Ali, young man." Shaq's hand trembled as he pressed the phone tighter to his ear. The Parkinson's disease that had been Ali's opponent for decades was evident in his speech, but the strength behind the words was unchanged. This was indeed the greatest, reaching out to him in his moment of doubt. "I'm honored, sir," Shaq managed, struggling to find words worthy of the moment. "I can't believe you're calling me." "I saw your game tonight," Ali said slowly, "and the game before that, and the one before that too." Shaq's stomach tightened. Even Muhammad Ali had witnessed his failures. "I'm sorry about that," Shaq began. But Ali cut him off. "Sorry? What are you sorry for? You think I never lost a fight?" Ali's question hung in the air like a challenge. Shaq leaned back against the plush leather of the booth, his mind racing through memories of Ali's career, the victories, the defeats, the comebacks. "I remember when they stripped me of my title," Ali continued, his words measured but clear. "I was 25 years old in my prime. They took my championship belt because I stood up for what I believed in." Shaq knew the story well. In 1967, Ali had refused military induction during the Vietnam War, citing religious beliefs. His boxing license was suspended, his passport taken, and he faced a 5-year prison sentence. The heavyweight champion of the world had been forced to sit on the sidelines during what should have been the peak years of his career. You lost. 3.5 years, Shaq said softly. 3 years, 6 months, and 10 days, Ali corrected. But who's counting? Despite himself, Shaq laughed. Even now, Ali's charisma was magnetic. When I came back, they said I was finished. Too slow. Too old. The magic was gone. Ali paused, and Shaq could hear his labored breathing. Sound familiar? Big man? It did. Painfully so. What did you do? Shaq asked, though he knew the answer. I proved them wrong, Ali said simply. Not with words, though you know I love my words, but with work, with heart, with believing in myself when nobody else did. As Ali spoke, a waiter approached Shaq's table carrying a bottle of Cristal champagne worth $2,000. I didn't order this, Shaq said, confused. The waiter smiled. Compliments of the gentleman at the bar. He said, champions deserve the best, even on their worst days. Shaq looked over to see a well-dressed man in a custom Tom Ford suit raise his glass in salute. The platinum Rolex on his wrist caught the light as he nodded respectfully. Mr. O'Neill, the man called across the room, my private jet is at your disposal whenever you need a getaway. Consider it a standing offer from one who still believes. Shaq nodded his thanks, humbled by the gesture, then returned his attention to the call. You still there, champ? Ali asked. Yes, sir, I'm here. Good. Now listen to me. These fancy people with their expensive gifts, they come and go. Fair weather. Friends driving Bentleys and wearing diamonds. I had them too. Ali's voice grew stronger as he warmed to his subject. But what separates champions from the rest isn't what they have. It's what they do when they have nothing. Shaq thought about his own journey, from the Newark housing projects to becoming one of the most dominant centers in NBA history. From having nothing to having everything. I started with nothing, Shaq acknowledged. And you worked for everything, Ali replied. That's why I'm calling you, Shaquille, to remind you of who you are. The significance of the moment wasn't lost on Shaq. Here he was, sitting in an upscale restaurant where a bottle of wine cost more than what many families made in a month, wearing a custom-tailored suit that cost $5,000, multiple championship rings on his fingers, and yet he felt like that kid from Newark again, hungry, determined, with something to prove. They're writing me off, Shaq admitted, his voice low, saying I'm too old, too slow, too heavy. Let them talk, Ali said with a sudden fierceness that transcended his physical limitations. While they're talking, you should be working. The restaurant had emptied considerably, the late hour driving even the most dedicated diners home. But Shaq remained, transfixed by the voice on the other end of the line. The voice of his childhood hero. The voice of Muhammad Ali. You know, what people forget about me? Ali asked, rhetorical as ever. They remember the butterfly and the bee. They remember the poems and the predictions. But they forget the pain. Shaq listened intently, absorbing every word. After Joe Frazier beat me in '71, people said I was finished. After Ken Norton broke my jaw in '73, they said I should retire. After George Foreman became champion, they said I didn't stand a chance. But you beat Foreman, Shaq said. The rumble in the jungle. Rope-a-dope, Ali confirmed, a smile evident in his voice. I let him punch himself out. Everyone thought I was crazy to let George hit me. Even my own corner thought I'd lost my mind. But I had a plan. The parallels weren't lost on Shaq. His own career had been defined by dominance, but also by strategics. Evolution, from the raw physicality of his Orlando days to the refined skill set he'd developed with the Lakers. You're telling me to rope-a-dope these critics? Shaq asked. I'm telling you to have a plan, Ali clarified, and to trust it, even when everyone else thinks you're finished. A sleek Maserati pulled up outside the restaurant window, its engine purring like a contented cat. A valet rushed to open the door, and out stepped one of Hollywood's most recognizable producers, a man known for his billion-dollar franchises and his eye for talent. The producer spotted Shaq and made his way over, his entourage of assistants trailing behind, all carrying the latest iPhone models and designer briefcases. "Shaquille," the producer said, extending his hand. "I've been trying to reach your agent for weeks. I have a role for you, lead, not supporting, in my next film. 8-figure paycheck, points on the back end, executive producer credit." Shaq looked up, momentarily distracted from his call. "I appreciate that, but non-negotiable," the producer continued, placing a business card made of platinum on the table. "My yacht is anchored off Malibu. Come by tomorrow, we'll discuss details over lunch. My chef trained under Gordon Ramsay." As quickly as he had arrived, the producer was gone, leaving behind the scent of expensive cologne and opportunity. "You still with me, Shaquille?" Ali asked, having patiently waited through the interruption. "Yes, sir. Sorry about that. No need to apologize. The world doesn't stop spinning just because Muhammad Ali is on the phone," he joked, "though maybe it should." Shaq laughed, feeling lighter than he had in weeks. "That man offering you a movie. Deal." "He sees what I see," Ali continued. "A champion going through a rough patch, not a has-been, not a never was, a champion regrouping." Shaq's throat tightened with emotion. "Thank you for saying that." "I'm not saying it to make you feel better," Ali insisted. "I'm saying it because it's true, and because someone once said it to me when I needed to hear it." "Who?" Shaq asked, genuinely curious. "Angelo Dundee, my trainer. After the first Frazier fight, I was devastated. Thought maybe they were right about me being finished. Angelo looked me in the eye and said, 'Champions lose fights. Legends come back and win the rematch.'" The restaurant staff had begun closing up, dimming lights and flipping chairs onto tables. But they left Shaq's corner untouched, understanding the importance of whatever conversation had kept the basketball legend in his seat for nearly 2 hours. "I have to ask," Shaq said, his voice soft with reverence. "Why me? Why call me tonight?" There was a pause, and Shaq could almost see Ali's thoughtful expression, the measured consideration behind his response. "Because 30 years ago, a skinny kid from Newark wrote me a letter," Ali finally said. "Said he had my poster on his wall. Said he wanted to be a champion someday, just like me." Shaq's breath caught in his throat. He remembered that letter, written on lined notebook paper, stamps purchased with money saved from his lunch allowance. He'd never received a response, and had eventually assumed it was lost among the thousands of fan letters Ali must have received. "You kept that letter?" Shaq asked, disbelieving. "I keep all the special ones," Ali replied, "and there was something about yours. The way you wrote about your mother working 2 jobs, the way you promised to make her proud, the way you said you'd be a champion, not just in sports but in life." Tears welled in Shaq's eyes, blurring his vision. He blinked them away, grateful for the privacy of his corner booth. "I've watched you, Shaquille," Ali continued, "through college at LSU, through your years in Orlando, through the championships with the Lakers. You've kept that promise you made in your letter. You've been a champion in every sense." Shaq was speechless, overwhelmed by the realization that Muhammad Ali, the greatest, had been watching his career unfold all these years. These losses don't define you," Ali said firmly, "just like my losses didn't define me. It's what you do next that matters. It's how you rise." Outside the restaurant, a Rolls-Royce Phantom with custom 24-karat gold trim pulled to a stop. The chauffeur hurried to open the rear door, revealing Shaq's longtime business partner, a tech entrepreneur whose latest app had just sold for $300 million. Through the window, Shaq could see his friend waiting patiently, knowing, without being told, that whatever call Shaq was on took precedence over their planned late-night strategy session at the entrepreneur's $10 million penthouse overlooking the Pacific. "I should let you go," Ali said, sensing the natural conclusion of their conversation. You've got people waiting for you, important people with important things. Nobody more important than you, Mr. Ali, Shaq said sincerely. Not tonight. Not ever. Ali chuckled softly. Good answer, champ. Now go show them what Shaquille O'Neal is really made of. Go remind them why they called you the most dominant ever. I will, Shaq promised, his voice steady with newfound resolve. Thank you for this, for everything. Thank me by proving me. Right, Ali replied. I'm still betting on you, Shaq Attack, always have been. As Shaq finally ended the call and slipped his phone into his pocket, he felt transformed. The weight of 3 consecutive losses no longer crushed his spirit. The doubts that had plagued him seemed distant and insignificant. Muhammad Ali, the man who had defeated George Foreman when nobody thought he could, who had reclaimed his title when everyone said he was finished, who had become a global icon. By staying true to his principles, believed in him. More importantly, Shaq believed in himself again. He signed the check, leaving a tip equal to the entire bill, and rose to his full height. As he walked through the restaurant, his stride was purposeful, his shoulders squared. The staff nodded respectfully, sensing the change in his demeanor. Outside, his business partner grinned at the sight of him. There he is, the entrepreneur said. There's the Shaq I know. Sorry to keep you waiting, Shaq replied, clasping his friend's hand. Worth every minute, his friend assured him. You look like a man with a plan, Shaq smiled, thinking of Ali's words. A champion regrouping, a legend preparing for a comeback. Tomorrow, Shaq said confidently, we begin again. If you've made it this far and felt every word, don't leave. Without subscribing, okay? I tell these stories with my heart in hand to reach people like you, who feel, who get emotional, who live. If this truly touched you, give back, comment, subscribe. Come be part of this family with me until the next video.